Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make animated GIFs, GIFs, GIFs on your iPad using ProCreate. So quickly, I want to go over the tools I'm going to be using in this video if you want to recreate what I'm doing. I'm using an iPad Pro. I have no idea what generation it is. I'll probably put it up on the screen here if I can find it. I bought it like 2 years ago on Amazon refurbished. I think it was around $300 to $400, so pretty expensive, but I think the same type of techniques will work on a regular iPad. Next, I'm using my handy dandy Apple pencil. This is a regular gripper that I found on one of my mechanical pencils, so it's not a special Apple pencil gripper if you were wondering. Then, of course, the app that I'm going to be using today is called ProCreate, and I've used it in tons of my videos, but if you're new here, ProCreate is basically a drawing app. What I traditionally use it for are doing initial sketches, editing my thumbnails, sometimes even editing pictures a little bit, and today we're going to be using it for digital animation. So these you can use on Instagram or on your website or anywhere that you can have an animated video file. So the first thing I'm going to do is just open up a new canvas. Size-wise, if you want to create a custom size, you're going to want to stick to something that is between the 1000 to 2000 pixel range. You don't want it to be so big that it's going to overload and take forever to download. So I'm going to stick to a 1080 by 1080 canvas. That's just going to be a square canvas, and I have my DPI at 300, which is just the standard DPI for if you're printing something. I believe DPI stands for dots per image, so obviously the higher it is, the higher your image quality is going to be. I'll go ahead and name this canvas GIF just so that way we have it as a reference. So GIFs by nature involve several pictures that when stitched together form sort of a movement. So for me, the key with GIFs is to have at least 3 layers. I think any less than 3, you don't really get that movement effect. I decided to make our GIF a lettered quote. Once we're done making it, I'm going to show you guys how you can upload it to Instagram, and if you want to use the GIFs that I've made on your Instagram stories, I'll also show you how to do that. So the first thing that I want to do is just do a quick initial sketch of what we want our image to look like, and for this I usually use either the technical pencil or the HB pencil. I'm going to zoom you guys in a little bit more so you can more easily see what I'm doing. I just realized my mic is in the shot. I hope that doesn't bother you guys. And traditionally when I'm sketching anything, I always want to turn this streamline feature all the way down because that's what's going to allow us to draw most truest to the actual line that we made. If you turn on the streamline feature, it's going to give you sort of a guided line that's basically an edited version of the actual movement that you make. And it's really helpful for when you're tracing over things because it makes it a lot smoother. But when I'm sketching, I like to turn that feature off. I just want to pick something that's short, and the 3-word quotes are perfect. I think I'm going to go for sort of a block lettered style. Looking around at some other really cool GIFs that I've seen on Instagram, and some of them have these cool drop shadows that sort of move around, and I thought that would be a really cool form of movement to incorporate. One tool that I'm going to pull in and use for today's sketch is this grid builder tool. This is just going to help me align my letters better. So for this GIF, we have 3 words, and I want the top word and the bottom word to be at a curve opposite each other. And the way that I'm going to do that is just by adding in a couple of these grid builder tools. And I'm going to add them each on a different layer so I can manipulate them individually. And then I'm just resizing them to sort of fit the size of the lettering that I want to create. Decrease the size of my sketch here. I always do a really super rough sketch of the phrase or the drawing that I'm going to create, and I pop that in the corner just so I can reference it. You can see the length of the words and you can see how they might sort of start to fit together, even though it in no way resembles what the end product is going to be. Just going to bring these a little closer together. I want the words to be pretty tight because we want it to be able to be as, I guess, big as it can without taking up as much space. And I'm gonna decrease the opacity. If you type on this little N here, you're able to decrease how transparent your drawing is. And I'm gonna decrease that transparency down to about 25% so I can still see it, but it's not going to affect my drawing on top. And I'm gonna go back again to that technical pencil and sketch with it. And you can probably tell I'm just using that grid builder to figure out where my straight lines are supposed to go, and then where the center of the letter is supposed to be vertically, and what angle they're supposed to be at. If you have the desire to download this grid building software on your iPad, I'll provide you all of the information that you need down in the description box. So quickly, I just wrote it in all caps. Now I'm gonna actually go in and make what I want the shape of my letters to be, and I wanna decrease the size of my pencil just a little bit. Every single pencil in ProCreate can be adjusted for size limits and opacity limits and all that stuff. S's are the hardest for me. Look at that, looks terrible. Also, if you're wondering why the backdrop behind this iPad looks like a newspaper insert, it's because I didn't have any actual backdrops. Ever since I moved, I didn't bring them with me and I haven't bought any new ones, so I just had to find what I had around the house, and I happen to have a Fairway coupon insert from a newspaper. My desktop is made of clear glass, so if I didn't have anything behind my iPad, you'd just be staring at my feet, wobbling back and forth, which I thought would be kind of distracting. More distracting than the fact that Kraft has 2 for $5 mac and cheeses. I'm burning one of those crackling wick wood candles right now. I turned off all the fans in this room because I knew I wanted the audio to be crisp. And then behind me, I just hear this weird wheezing noise, and I'm like, what is that? And it's my candle. Okay, so we have our first initial sketch. I'm gonna get rid of the backdrop so we can see what we're working with here better. It actually helps that I can look at this on the viewfinder, because I think anytime you get really, really close to something, it doesn't look the same as when you actually zoom out and look at it from a much more distanced perspective, because you can tell if there's unevenness, which you can't really tell when you're this close. So now is the time that we need to decide the color and the texture that we want for our letters. I actually really like the texture that this pencil gives off. I'm gonna actually use this same pencil, but I'm just gonna go ahead and turn up the streamline because it's gonna help me get more smooth letters. Whenever I'm feeling really uninspired with colors, I usually just go over to Pinterest. I'm feeling like this one. So it helps to just keep the photo somewhere in the image where you're not gonna need to access. Press and hold down on the part of the photo that you wanna drag the color from. So I think I'm gonna use this bright yellow color as the main color for our letters, and then I'll go back in and use this teal color for the drop shadow later. Up to this point, we haven't really done anything significant related to actually making the GIF, but I promise we will get into that in a moment. Also, I wanna just note that these letters don't have to be perfectly straight, they don't have to be perfectly sized. The reason I really like using this pencil brush versus maybe like an inking brush is because since we have that little variation in the strokes, it really kind of masks some of the variation that we have in the sizing and lines of the letters. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the way that this turned out. This could be considered done, but I think I really want to add that drop shadow as a layer of interest. So I'm just gonna go in and select that teal color that we found earlier. And then I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna place it behind the D1 layer, and I'm gonna label it D2. The key with making a drop shadow is you wanna pick one side of the letter where the light is shining, and on the opposite side is where your drop shadow is going to go. And I'm just making sure to be very consistent as to where I'm placing the drop shadow, because that's how you can make it the most convincing.
Now I'm just going in and drawing the next 2 layers, almost exactly identical to the first one that we made. There will obviously be slight variations just because whenever you redraw something, you're not going to draw it exactly the same way you drew it before, but that variation is something we want because that's what's going to help create the movement in our GIF.
The final countdown. We did it! Yay! Okay guys, now we get into the actual fun part of this tutorial, which is making this thing move around. So you want to make sure all 3 of your layers that you created are merged into each other, and just for the sake of it, I'm going to rename them so we don't get confused. I want to make sure the opacity is turned all the way up on all of them, and I also want to make sure that they are all have the check box checked, not unchecked, so we're seeing all of them at the same time. And then I want to uncheck everything else. Lastly, what I want to do is get rid of this white backdrop. It was really helpful while we were drawing because I think it makes it easier to see things, but once we actually create our GIF, we don't want it to have a white backdrop on it, we want it to have a clear backdrop on it. So I'm going to disable that background color feature. Next, I'm going to go over to this wrench, the share, and as you can see under share layers, we have a few options here. Unfortunately for Instagram, they don't actually allow you to import GIFs as a GIF file. I know, it's really weird. They have to be in an MP4 format. But luckily, ProCreate allows us to export in an animated MP4. So the next thing we want to do is change the frames per second option. This is basically just going to change how fast our GIF is moving. My personal preference when you have 3 layers would be to do around the 4 to 5 range. I think it's just the most pleasing to the eye. Next, we have 2 options for the export size. So I'm gonna go for a full resolution download. And then you can just save the video onto your iPad and it should show up in your photos once you're done. It's kind of hard to see it moving when it's in this format because every time you play the video, it's obviously only 1 second long. So just for the purpose of showing you guys what the full resolution version of this GIF looks like, I'm gonna download it as an animated GIF in full resolution and we'll just view it in my camera roll so that way you can see how it turned out. So this is what the finished version of the GIF looks like.
If you'd like to upload your GIF to Instagram as a regular post, all you have to do is just go to Instagram and act like you're uploading a regular picture, and if you've saved the MP4 into your camera roll, it will show up just like any of your other photos. If you'd like to upload your GIF to your Instagram story, you're going to need to go to a website called jiffy.com. Once you're there, you can go ahead and make an account and then upload your GIF using the button at the top of the screen. I just dragged and dropped mine from a Finder window. Then you're going to want to add whatever tags you're going to use to identify your GIF. So this is the way you're going to be able to search for it when you go to put it in your Instagram story. As far as I know, in order to make your GIFs public, you do have to become a verified user from this website, but I believe the only requirements are you have to have at least 5 GIFs and then request access from the admin of the website, and I think it's pretty straightforward from there. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, you definitely should. I will let you guys know when all of my GIFs become live, and then you can use them in your own Instagram stories. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can subscribe to my channel, and I have tons of other videos. If you want to keep watching, go ahead and binge as much as you please. All right, I'll see you guys next Saturday. Bye!